We're using v4 with an array like this, and that is honestly also probably the most common way of using it. But v4 has a couple of interesting variations. For one, you can, for example, pull out more than just the array item. You can also get the index of the item in the array. And doing so is simple. You just wrap your item, which you're pulling out of the array with every iteration, between parentheses, and then add a comma. And now you can add a second item here, give it any name you want, like index or idx. I'm going for index here, and this will be the index of this item. So that's another syntax supported by Vue, getting not just the item itself, but also its index with this notation. And now here, we could, for example, add a dash, and that's not special Vue syntax, that's just a dash. And then again, add interpolation to also output the index if we want to. I'll quickly reformat that. And if I save that and reload, if I start adding goals, you see here, this has the index 0 because it was the first goal I added. Master view has index 1, and so on. So that can also be useful in cases where you need the index. Now, you can also loop through more than just arrays. You can also loop through objects. Now here, goals is an array, and you will probably most often loop through arrays. But in case you had a different scenario, you can also loop through objects. I'll quickly add a second unordered list here with a second list item with a second v4. And here, I want to loop through an object where I have my name and my age. You could, of course, create that in your data property in the Vue app. I'm doing it here in HTML, quick and dirty, but of course, if this would be a real app and a real example, you might want to move that into your JavaScript code. But now we have this object here, and I want to loop through it and its properties. v4 supports that as well. Again, with the in keyword, and here, I had to reload, by the way, that's why it's empty here on the right again. But here you can now get your different values stored in the different properties and output those between the list tags with interpolation again. And if you save that and reload, you see max and 31 because these are the values of those properties. Now, just how you can get the index for looping through arrays, you can also get the key name when looping through objects by wrapping this into parentheses, and then the second element you can pull out of this loop is the key. So that here you could also output the key with interpolation, then maybe a colon, which is just plain text, and then the value. And now you would see name colon max, age colon 31. And if you needed it, you could also get the index here, though of course that will probably rarely be the case, but that is also supported here. So you can also get the index just by adding it as a third element here if you're looping through objects. We don't really need it here for this demo app, but of course it is important for you to be aware of what v4 can do, and well, looping through objects is one of the things it can do. I'm nonetheless going to comment this out because we don't need it here, but you should be aware of it. You should be aware of the fact that v4 can be used with object as well, and that you can retrieve the value or the value and the key or value, key, and index if you needed that. One other thing you can do with v4 is you can loop through a range of numbers. You can also use it like this, and then output the numbers 1 to 10, for example. So whenever you need something like this, looping through a range of numbers by simply using v4 with in and then some number, that also works. Again, not something we need here, but something you should be aware of since, well, that is also something you can do with v4, and who knows, maybe you need exactly this behavior in your next application. With that, however, I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going back to our demo application with the course goals here. We're now able to add goals and to output them here in our list. And that's great. Now let's also make sure that we can remove items from the list to make this truly dynamic.